Hello, you wonderful being. Welcome to today's session. It's been a while since I've been on here because I was doing the 12 nights to transformation or 12 nights of transformation course, which was the time in between the years called Rauhnächte in Germany. So I'm glad to be back here. I hope you're all doing well and that you have entered 2023 in a good way, that the year has started well for you. So today we're going to be talking about, let me just mute my phone. Today we're going to be talking about traveling. To write traveling alone is really, so the title is how traveling helps you grow and love yourself. But actually, I feel like especially traveling alone does that for you. So that's one of my favorite ways to travel, because I get to explore and see the world how whenever I'm ready to go somewhere, or it also lets me really enter into the world that I go to in a very different way than traveling with other people. So I decided to open up the room for any kind of travel experiences that you've also had, that have helped you grow, that have helped you love yourself, that have helped you expand your horizon in some way. I'm going to be sharing some of my experiences and the top 5 things that I feel traveling can help you grow with or evolve. Um, so, the first point of why I decided to go with traveling today is because traveling helps you escape your current situation. So, when you're going to a different country, a different place, especially if it's culturally very different to where you're from, where you're living, it can really help you step out of your normal day-to-day life. It helps you leave your comfort zone. It helps you to leave all your worries behind, even. So sometimes when we want to change something about ourselves, when we're ready to make that change, we try to do that in the normal environment where we are faced with the everyday challenges that we have, either job-wise or personal. So really taking the time to go away, to go to a place where no one knows you, to go to a place where you can rediscover yourself. And funny enough, I think the places that allow you to do that most is where most chaos happens on the outside. So there's a book by Vivian Dittmar. She sadly only writes about it in German, but it's called Your Inner Compass, Dein Inneres Navi. And in there, she describes India just the way that I see it. So I've spent 1.5 years in India by myself, and I traveled around India a lot. Oh, good morning, Christine. Nice to see you here. And I see some other familiar faces, well, in the bubbles down there. So I'm glad to see that, and also some new faces. Nice to have you all here. So, yeah, my experience in India is that it's very, very chaotic on the outside. But I love it. It really helps me to see the world from a completely different space, but also really go inwards, interestingly enough. And it's also at the same time so super fascinating because my brother described it best. He says, even if you're sitting in a taxi and you look to the left, you know that you're missing something on the right. So it's really fantastic. Hello, Christine. Nice to have you here as well from Germany. And Laura, yes, I'm still in Germany. Well, I'm back in Germany. Let's see for how long, because I can feel like I do want to travel again. Probably that's the reason why I chose to do this topic today. But maybe to motivate all of you to go traveling too. So yeah, really going on a trip, and that's also why I'm so eager to start the retreats again now that Corona has passed. So I am a self-love coach. I'm a yoga instructor. I use healing meditations to help people. I use energy work. And all of these things, for me, I love to do that face to face with someone. And that's also why I give retreats. And it allows the person that comes to these retreats to really leave everything that is challenging them behind, and to really focus on yourself. Because if you have kids, for example, or if you have a partner even, or if you're living in a situation with other people, or if you've got your job, you don't really have the time and space to focus on yourself full time. And even if it's just a 5-day retreat, like I'm going to be holding in Greece in April, it still helps you to refocus, recenter, restructure, rebalance yourself. So it kind of gives you some kind of a routine again. It lets you step back into a routine that can support you further on down the line. But it also helps you to not always be available for everyone. I realize because you're using a sweater, I love to travel alone, not knowing yet where, how long. Yeah, Laura, exactly. As soon as it's below 30 degrees, I tend to wear a sweater. It happens quite fast with me, but especially here in Germany. So yeah, this is the first point that I would like to make. Why traveling is so amazing in the first place. Why leaving your normal habitat is important for your growth and self-love in the first place. The second one is it helps you trust. It helps you trust in the universe. It helps you trust in yourself. It helps you trust random strangers. So of course, I say this, but every time I say these things, it's not about blind trust. It's not about being naive and simply going to a country and believing that everyone is good and being blind about it. So always be mindful, listen to your intuition. There's also going to be another point later on that it's basically, just not to still be vigilant and be mindful and understand that There are certain things that you should be doing in the country. For example, when I go to India, there are areas like Goa where you can walk around in short pants and tank tops, but I prefer still, even though I was living in Goa for 3, 4 months, I decided still to wear long clothes and to cover myself appropriately, unless I was at the beach. But it's just a form of respect as well. When you go to a different country where the women especially are more covered up, then cover up. It's not necessary for you to show more skin. So it's just also about being respectful towards the culture, in my opinion. So, but trusting or learning to trust yourself as well in navigation, in meeting other people, opening up to other people, all of these things, when you are in an environment that is foreign to you, it can also help you because you have nothing to lose. No one knows you. You can just be yourself. Maybe you can, if you haven't dared to be yourself in your current environment, this could be your first step to try it out, even to just be, yeah, this is me. And the people that you meet, they don't know the you that you are when you're by yourself at home, when you're in your home environment. So it just gives you the opportunity to see and experiment with yourself as well. And there is a story that I would like to share with you regarding trust, or regarding the attitude in traveling in general, because um, it shows how your attitude changes the things that you experience during your trips, but also in general during life. So the story goes as follows. There is a guard at the border of a city, and a man drives up to, or a person drives up to that guard, and they ask, so how are the people in your city? And the guard asks the man or the woman, how are the people in your city? And the person in the car says, well, they're all really in bad moods. They're not nice to me. They're just horrible individuals. And then the guard says, well, those are the people that you're going to encounter in my city as well. And then a few moments later, that person drives off. Another person drives up to the guard and asks the guard, so how are the people in your city? And the guard says, well, how are the people in your city? And the person in the car says, they're wonderful. They're so caring and giving and grateful and happy all the time. And the guard says, well, those are the people you're going to encounter in my city. So the moral of the story is the way that you encounter the world, it's also how the world is going to encounter you. There was also another experiment that was made um, by a man who has done exactly this. One day he left the house, he was putting himself into a bad mood. He was walking around with a frown all day long, and then he experienced people that were not nice to him either. And the next day he did it the exact opposite way. So he was putting himself in a really good mood, and people would encounter him and be very helpful and good to him. So this is a really important part of traveling, that you keep your mood in a good way, or at least that you don't have that you don't think everyone is bad. And when I was just about to leave for Bali, people here in Germany, there were news articles and things that I read online that were saying that Bali is currently in, people are not behaving well, they don't have money, so they're stealing and they're abusive and things like that. And when I got there, none of it was true. I mean, of course, it can be places like that, things like that could have happened, but I never personally encountered it. And even in India, I never had one bad incident. It was always super helpful individuals. Um, it's just also about not being naive and understanding who you can trust. Christine says, I lived for 1 year in Finland, a wonderful experience. One good thing was that I didn't understand the language, therefore I didn't understand the bad news. Yeah, Christine, that's a very good point. I love that. Exactly. When you don't understand the language, that's another added bonus. I've heard that quite a few times from people that they actually love to live in places where they don't understand the language because it keeps them in a little bubble, and you don't hear people on the neighboring tables, for example, when you're sitting at a restaurant. You don't hear them gossip, as Christine says. You don't hear them talk about anything bad, and it's, you can really focus on your own thoughts, on your own projects. Even it just kind of is like a white noise kind of effect. The one thing that I would like to add to that, though, is that it is still important to learn a few words here and there. So I find that is also a form of respect, to know a few basic words like thank you and please and hello. So depending on where you are, but of course you don't need to know the whole language, and it is very it gives a sense of peacefulness. And the point regarding sitting at a restaurant is also one that I encounter, especially with women a lot, that they are worried sitting at a restaurant alone, but it's actually a wonderful experience as well. I think the places that I would recommend always going to when you're traveling is supermarkets or markets in general, because this is really where you get to know the culture. You can and be really observant. So this is another point that I have in my 5 points, where being observant, becoming the observer is crucial, and this helps you in life in general. So when you learn to step out of yourself, so when you become the observer of everything, I'm sure you've heard this plenty of times already. This is a very big thing in yoga, for example, or in meditation. So meditation is just one limb of yoga. But becoming the observer is really, really important. You get to know how people interact with one another. You get to know the rituals. You get to know the politeness. So what should you do at restaurants? You can observe. You can see, when are people starting to eat? How are they eating? Are they eating with the hands, or are they eating with chopsticks or forks and knives? Things like that. If they're eating with the hand, are they eating with one hand or both hands? Most of the time it would just be one hand because the other hand is considered dirty. So all of these things, becoming the observer is not only going to help you in a country where you've never been and you don't know the culture, but it helps you adapt. It helps you not step on anyone's toes as well. And it helps you later on in life as well for yourself, because the more you can observe yourself as well, your own actions, your own thoughts, your own reactions, you're going to be able to adjust them, correct them. Yes, absolutely right, says Christine. Yeah. Absolutely. Finland people are very, very well mannered and supportive as well. So I think Finland is one of the most trustworthy countries to be in. The interesting thing about India when I was there is that you get to know when they're actually able to help you. So they never had any ill intentions, but sometimes they would say yes, yes. They would say yes, yes, and you would know that this is they don't know. They can't help you with this. But you would only figure that out once you've lived there for a little bit. So at the beginning, you think, okay, the taxi driver knows where to go, or the rickshaw driver knows where to go. But eventually, you would be able to figure out, okay, this yes, yes, there is a specific way that they say it. That is not correct. They don't know. So also these things, it's very interesting to observe, and you become more fine tuned to body language, to certain hints and clues, and all of this helps you even here. It helps you in your relationships at home as well to understand when someone is telling you the truth, or when someone is trying to mess with you in some way, shape, or form. So I personally love to go to countries where I don't know the language, where the culture is very different, and where there's some kind of where I really need to observe to understand what is going on and how I can integrate in some way. Another great way to do that is, of course, to live on site with locals. That's one of the best ways to get to know a culture. However, I personally do prefer to stay by myself, because I need my own little space. This is also connected to being a projector, probably. Um, oh, and Antika, thank you so much. Yes, Thailand is on my list, absolutely. So yeah, funny that I've never been there, but it's on my list for sure. I've heard lots of good things about it. So yeah, I personally prefer to be in my own space. It could be connected to me being a projector and me being quite open in my human design chart. If you've never heard of that, it's a tool that I use to work with my clients. And when you're very open in your chart, you kind of do need your privacy. And the first 9 months that I lived in India, I was going from one hostel to the next with 8 or 10 bedrooms, so 10 bed rooms. So it was very, very exhausting. I didn't have my own space. And on top of that, all the chaos. Yeah, that was a lot. But if you have your little own space and you understand your human design as well, that can also help you in how you travel. Because in human design, there are even, you can see that some individuals prefer to have a plan. So if you do travel with someone and you are very different in your design, how you're laid out to work, then maybe one of you really loves to plan everything out and needs that structure, and would rather stay in one place more fixed, and the other person loves to be spontaneous and loves to go from one place to the next to the next to the next, and they love to live in big communities. So understanding your design and the design of the person that you're traveling with is also not just amazing in normal life, but also when you're traveling. So this kind of brings me to the next point of flexibility. So this is a very important part of traveling because it helps you to learn to become more flexible, especially if you go to countries like, for example, India or Bali. Probably also Thailand, but I'm not sure about it. It's just stories that I've heard from friends and my brother. And but yeah, where there is a bit more chaos happening around you, and where things sometimes don't go to plan. So especially India, it was a place where where things just don't go to plan a lot of times. Maybe your cab is late, or maybe you do miss your flight because of that, or it starts raining in buckets and you can't get to the place where you wanted to go. But learning to be okay with that, at least this is what India does really, really teach you. If you don't learn it, then you're going to hate India and you're going to get really, really frustrated about it. But I really love it for it, because it helps me. It helps me step into the trust again even more. It helps me to understand that everything happens for a reason. And it helps me to not latch onto my plans, because I know that every time I make a plan and something doesn't work out, there's always a good reason for it. And I might not see the reason right there and then, but eventually I will see it. Eventually I will say, oh yeah, that's why I didn't make it on time. So, for example, today I had to do a few things, and on the way to walking my dog, I got stopped. Like uh, I couldn't deliver a package that I wanted to deliver at that point in time before going for a walk. And then I went for a walk before delivering the package, because it would have been too much of a hassle. So doing that allowed me to encounter my dog's best friend. So my dog has a best friend. He loves to play with him. And I then felt so happy about seeing them play that the package wasn't such a big issue. So um, all of these things is really, everything always happens for a reason. So traveling helps you understand that. Ah, nice. Oh, yes. Oh, I miss it. I haven't been in India for a long time. I hope, well, I'm sure that you enjoyed it, Antika. I'm just going to go with Antika. I hope that's right. It also brings me to the next point of serendipity. So, uh, then the other thing is, of course, if you then learn to be okay with having flexible travel plans. It doesn't mean that you don't have any kind of travel plans at all, but be flexible in your plans. If you have a layout, if you say, okay, this is what I want to do that day, then do it, but don't latch onto it. And this is also, again, going to help you immensely in your life over here as well. But it also helps you in recognizing serendipity, or experiencing serendipity. And that is stumbling upon random beauty in life. So random beautiful experiences, beautiful people, beautiful situations. It just happens. And all of these things always come together. So if you're being flexible, if you trust in the universe and yourself and the situations, you are going to encounter more and more beautiful opportunities. The other thing that I learned is less is more. So when you travel for 9 months through India, or even longer, with just a suitcase, and eventually, I actually left half of my clothes somewhere along the way, and half of my suitcase was full of books. So it was half suitcase full of clothes and half suitcase full of books that I bought along the way. Because apart from markets and supermarkets, the other place that I always go to is worshiping places, if I can, because some religions don't let me enter as a woman, or yeah, but most of the time I try to go to worshiping places. And the other thing is going to bookstores. So I have a very big problem with books. Like, yeah. So I tend to buy a lot of books, and it helps me also connect with the culture and connect with yeah. I just love going to bookstores and reading and seeing what they have in store. So hi Elena, nice to have you here. So when I then traveled for 9 months through India with just one suitcase, half books, half clothes. I came back home and I opened up my closet and I realized I just have way too much. So if you ever want to declutter, if you really have a problem doing so, I would recommend you going to a place with just a suitcase for multiple months if you can, because it's going to teach you that you actually don't need most of the things that you do have. Very, very helpful trick. Oh, I'm glad that you say that, Elena. So yeah, and apart from less is more, the attitude that you learn along the way, it's also mindfulness. So it kind of goes along with becoming the observer, but mindfulness really allows you to, or you get to, traveling really allows you to practice mindfulness, because you get to go to a new place, and a lot of times people are challenged with mindfulness because they are so used to what they have and they're not able to see all the great things that they do have. So if you're traveling to countries, especially poorer countries, but simply if you travel to a country for 6 months with a suitcase, you're also going to come back and you're going to be more appreciative. You're going to, for example, what I really missed sometimes was having a warm shower. Because when I was traveling in hostels, there was not always warm water coming out of the showers. So all of these things, they are just, you become more mindful, and you become more observant of what you have and what you can be grateful for. I was lucky enough that I was raised by a mom that always taught us gratitude from the very beginning, but I've had one client in particular who really had a challenge with mentioning 3 things in the morning that he's grateful for. And doing a trip like this can really help you revisit or re-see the world with new eyes, because you travel to a different country and everything is new. So you're going to notice more and more things around you that are new, that are amazing and wonderful and inspiring, and you're curious about it. So you're kind of stepping back into the view of a child. This is always how I describe mindfulness. I say, okay, look at the world as if you were a child and as if you're seeing something for the very first time. And that is pretty much mindfulness, without judgment. So children usually don't judge. They are just like, oh, what a beautiful flower. And they kind of look at it and observe. And if they've never seen a flower before, they don't know if it's good or bad, or if it's going to bite them, or if it's going to do anything, if it's poisonous or something. They're just curious and observant. So this is what traveling kind of also does to you. You have gate 46, yes. That's true. Thank you, Maria. I appreciate it. See what they are in reality. Yes, absolutely. Look at the world with the mind of a child. I love that. Yeah, with the eyes, with the senses of a child. Basically, it's. But yeah, a child has a very pure way of looking at things, and so yeah, that's what traveling can teach you if you're open for it. The other thing is that when you're going to enter into, or before going on a trip, don't believe everything that is said. So as I said with Bali, there was a lot of bad news because I went during lockdown, and there was a lot of bad news regarding them not having enough money and them stealing, and that I would have to be careful about that. So don't believe everything that is said, but also don't be blind and naive about it. So to experience serendipity, it is important to also get lost. So to go to a city and to just start walking and exploring, but be mindful of where the areas are that can be dangerous. And be mindful as well as how you carry yourself. Walk confidently. Don't show your expensive camera if you're going through areas that are not very wealthy. Always try to hide your belongings. So if I would go outside, I would then have one of those hiding belts or something like that. Even though after a few months you kind of drop that as well, because you start to get to know and understand the place that you are in. So yeah, there are just a lot of beautiful experiences that you can make in a foreign place, if you're willing to be open for them. And walk off the beaten path. This is these are the experiences that for me were often the most beautiful. Not always, there are also beautiful things on the beaten path, but a lot of times walking off the beaten path is where you can find the small little gems that you wouldn't have found otherwise. So just walk, 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 walk. Maybe ride a bicycle. I always ride my scooter, but even the scooter is already a little too fast. So you tend to not capture everything. You tend to not see the little graffiti that is put on a wall somewhere in a corner, or you tend to not encounter a lady that is handing out coffee on the side of the street. Um, so all of these things, there are many beautiful experiences that you can have, and especially when you're walking, the pace is slow and you can see many, many, many more things. So, is anyone here that would like to share a little bit about their travel experiences? What have you learned? What was one of the most empowering encounters that you've had, or mind-opening encounters that you've had? Mm. There was another encounter that I had in India, which was with two yoga instructors. So when I first went to India, I didn't know yoga yet, and I only started because my brother. It would be helpful for my brother's health, and these two yoga instructors were from England, and they had moved to Goa to open up their own retreat, and they were amazing because they knew where to pick you up. So if you were not at all connected to the topic, they wouldn't start with enlightenment and you need to meditate 5 hours a day to reach it. They would really start with your physical body, trying to get you to understand that just movement is healthy. And eventually, after my 9 months in India, I did have a teacher who was talking to me about energies and chakras, and and koshas and all of these things. And if I would have had the teacher that I had at the very end, at the very beginning, I would have said that everyone that does yoga is mad. But after those 9 months, I had encountered just the right people at the right time for me to really understand everything from my physical body to my energy layer, to my mind and emotions, and then even my spiritual aspects. And these people, there were some people that would share stories like them sitting with Babaji, for example, on top of a mountain and talking to him. And this man has been dead for I don't know how many years. And he's said to have lived for hundreds of years. So not just 100 years, but hundreds of years. And these teachers would sit with gurus like that have left their physical body, and they would speak to them. So if someone would have said that to me at the very beginning, I would have also said they are mad. But by now, everything is possible. Of course, there are also people that are fooling you, that are trying to tell you something just for the sake of it, especially as actually in this field of natural health or energetic medicine. There are a lot of individuals who would just tell you something just because they know that it gets to you, or because they feel you're gullible enough. So it's always challenging to also understand who's telling you the truth and who isn't. And you might at the beginning be like, no, this is absolute, this is not true what they're saying. But if you encounter one person after another that tells you a very similar story, and they have never met one another, then you start to understand that things are actually possible in that direction as well. So those were all experiences that I've had, mostly in India, but because we've always traveled a lot. My parents always took us everywhere, from 5-star hotels to a tiny little town in Ghana, for example, which is 40 people living in that village. It was all really enlightening. So is there anything else you would like to know and share, maybe? And also, if you like, I would love for you to share with me regarding a topic that you would like me to cover, because I was sitting here today and I was thinking, okay, what kind of topic should I talk about next on Inside Timer? I was considering talking about relationships and human design. I was considering talking about shadow work. I was considering talking about... those were the two considerations for now. So my specialities are, I help people love themselves through the opportunity concept, which I have developed from the yogic concept of the 5 koshas. So I use ancient wisdom and modern science to help clients with several different tools. And I use human design to understand them much quicker than having therapy sessions for weeks on end to really get to understand them. It really helps me to quickly get to the challenges that clients might be facing. And I will start giving yoga classes again. But apart from that, I'm open to any ideas. And if not, then it was wonderful to be here with you again. Thank you for all the love and the hearts and the comments and the communication. The definition of shadow work. You want me to talk about that now or in the next talk? So definition, just in very, very short, you can work, so we all have shadows and light. And what my personal aim is in life is to work on myself and to go more and more towards my light aspects. But I also love to recognize my shadows and to work on my shadows. So to move my shadows into the light. So we can have shadows that are reactive or repressed, especially when you look at it from a human design aspect, but also in simple shadow work when it comes to childhood challenges. So a lot of our triggers are based in our childhood, but you can also find a lot of these informations in your human design. And to look at your shadows that are not, that you're still expressing in a low frequency vibration, and to shift them into the light aspect. So out of your shadows, so I'm going to give you an example from myself, for example. I used to be extremely stubborn as a teenager, but I was stubborn for the wrong things. I was stubborn for small, tiny little things, and I would hold on to them. I would hold on to anger as well. And the gate that is defined in my human design is also in my sun. So it's a very, very important gate. And this is where you can find being stubborn. But I can shift it into a direction where I am stubborn about the right things. So it doesn't mean that all falls away completely, but I become stubborn about the right things. I fight for the right things. Elena, this is gate 38. Thank you as well, Shari. So gate 38 in my sun makes me very stubborn if I'm in my shadow for the wrong things, but I can shift it into a stubbornness where I fight for the right things. And I then also, once I reach the gift and then the enlightenment, I can see that honor becomes a very, very important topic in my life. And it is very true that honor has always been a very strong word for me, very, very important word for me. But only after reading about this gate and after really understanding it, I was able to, first of all, understand how to move my shadow into a positive direction. And I could also understand why I was so obsessed as a kid by someone like Joan of Arc. She was just fascinating to me. And I can now, because I understand the gene keys and because I understand human design, I can understand why that is so, so important to me. There's even more to that if you go into the asteroids. Maria. Gates are, in human design, are the numbers that you see in your chart. So I'm going to show you a chart here, my chart. So this is human design. This is kind of what it looks like. Hi, Christine. And you have these numbers written on the side. Oh, Christine. And these numbers are the gates. So whenever something is defined here, you can see it here, or you can see it here on the columns. And they're defined by planets. And these are the gates. So you can see here in my 38, that's the gate that I was just talking about, where I'm very stubborn. But yeah, I'm thankfully not as stubborn anymore. So it's also reduced, and I feel like I'm stubborn for the right things. Elena, gate 38. Okay, one thing to understand is that everyone has everything in their design. And that becomes very, 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 very true when you start to look at asteroids, because if you do consider the asteroids all asteroids, then you're definitely for sure colored in everywhere. because there are 900,000 asteroids, and if we would take all of them into consideration, then you do have everything within you. So what can happen if you are stubborn for the wrong things? What can happen is that you're living in your shadow of the gate 38, even though it's not colored in. So it can happen that if you have gate 28, for example, but you don't have gate 38, you can still be challenged with this topic. You can anyways be challenged with it as well. If you have an asteroid that is very important placed in this gate, then it can still impact you. So what also comes on top of my 38 is that I have a very powerful asteroid in my 38, which is also a warrior princess. And this kind of enhances my my look on Joan of Arc, for example. That's also an added way of why I feel so connected to her for some reason. So it all makes sense in hindsight. But yeah, these are all possibilities when it comes to human design. Here in the chart, you will only find the 13 planets / nodes, for example. So there's North Node, South Node, and then there are the other planets, the 11 other planets. You won't find the asteroids in it, but if you look at your chart, you can already decondition yourself. You can already learn why you might be super emotional, even though there is no reason for it. You can learn why you're having challenges with pressure. You can learn why you're picking up on other people's symptoms all the time. Like if someone has a headache, you start to have a headache without them even saying that they have a headache. And you start to understand why that is happening. So really understanding who you are and who you are not can help you in a lot of ways when it comes to self-growth and self-love. But yeah, I was asking for a topic for next session, which would be amazing if you could tell me. You're welcome, Marielle. Otherwise, I will just put up anything. Human design. Okay, human design. Yes, I love it. I'm just going to be repeating it over and over again. Yes, I will. Human design and self-love again, or self-growth maybe this time, or self-confidence. That's also a good one. How it can help you with self-confidence. Essentially, it all comes down to self-love, but yeah. Thank you very, very much, everyone. Okay, Monica, I will. Human design for self-love, self-growth, and self-confidence. That's gonna be a long title. Thank you as well, everyone. Yes, I will do that, Elena. Oh, Christina. Yeah, I totally forgot to record it. Now that you're saying it, I should have recorded it. Good thing is that Inside Timer does record it, but the quality is not very good. I wanted to record it with my phone, but I totally forgot about it. I am going to try to somehow get it from here so that I can post it probably on my YouTube channel. But let me give it a try. Yeah, maybe that's an option. I will see what I can do. I was driving to Lax, wasn't active in the chat. No worries, Christine. Perfectly fine. You're welcome, Shari. I've really enjoyed your session. Miko has made me aware of a couple of things that I feel are going to really help me in my journey. Things great. I'm very happy about that, Maria. You're welcome. Oh, you got them. Perfect. Yes, I messaged you today, Christine, actually. Great. I'm happy that you got the journals. I was worried because it's not tracked. So cool. Perfect. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a beautiful start or rest of your day. And I will see you on here shortly. Sending you lots of love. Great. I'm glad. Thank you, Christine. And thank you, everyone else here as well. See you soon.